is applied to their own citizens. It's not his money, he's never earned it. This money is supplied to him in exchange for natural resources of Ukraine and the lands of Ukraine. But again, it's not Zelensky who created these lands. After such comments, Marco Rubio and Stephen Witkoff were forced to cancel their participation in the meeting. Head of the Foreign Office of the UK, as well as foreign ministers of Germany and France, followed suit. As a matter of fact, Zelensky derailed the London round of consultations, which testified to the Kiev's intention to derail the peace process at any price. It's exactly what they did with the Minsk agreement. It's exactly what they did with the 30-day moratorium on strikes against energy infrastructure. That's how they derailed peace talks in spring 2022, and that's how they undermined the Easter truce. Now let's turn to the Western media. They continue to publish materials about what's really happening in Ukraine. On the 16th of April, The Economist concluded that monopolization of power by Zelensky is happening in Ukraine. Well, it's better too late than never. They stress that Zelensky, who usurped power, and his assistants don't want to share power neither with the government nor with the parliament. Now I would like to ask Western journalists who suddenly have some suspicions, and previously, what do you think his plans were? It was not about democracy that he agreed with Biden. When Biden traveled to Ukraine and led sessions of the government, none of Western journalists even asked a question about democracy and the rule of law. They didn't want to know what sort of example the US Democrats were showing to the Ukrainians. Was it not the beginning of usurping the power in Ukraine? Wasn't it a mocking of law? No, the Western journalists applauded back then. It was a great picture according to them. They also applauded to the way the war was usurped during the Maidan events. They applauded when local authorities' premises were destructed by those who the West financed. All of this led to an anti-constitutional coup d'etat. And now, all of a sudden, Western journalists come to their senses and ask themselves why the power is being usurped by Zelensky. Why don't they find a single fact of how democracy is applied in Ukraine? Why don't they find a single evidence of how rule of law was supported with the help of the West? Now, Western media stress that those who demonstrate independence and have major support of the population, or have direct contact to Western officials, were either fired by Zelensky and his assistants, or their power was reduced. And what was the situation before, when the legitimate president of Ukraine, well, remember the Maidan events, the elected president was outlawed, and it was done upon insistence of the West, and it was jubilated by the Western media, and it was to make sure that Yushchenko comes to power during the third round of elections. And now, remember, the second round of Maidan, which was the last one for Ukraine and its then borders. Remember how the crowd, paid by the Western money, demanded that the legitimately elected president and legitimately elected power and law enforcement agencies are stopped. Where were the Western journalists back then? We see that Zelensky, who is losing power, tries to defend his power and cleans the political field from potential competitors. His office plans to pass through Verkhovna Rada a bill that would limit the power of city mayors to 2 cadences, which may dismiss the mayors of Kiev, Odessa, Dnipropetrovsk and other major cities. Thus, the Zelensky regime tries to establish total control over local authorities, preparing himself for a possible political upheaval. I would like to remind those in Ukraine who is still capable of reasoning. Remember how negotiators visited Ukraine. What happened to the Ukrainian negotiators? Some of them were simply killed